You are the parents of the two beautiful sisters in back of you?
Yes.
Yes.
And I understand that they are minors?
One is
Okay. Which one?
Maddie,
All
Madeline.
right. And what is, and before you tell me her name, how old is she?
15.
15. And do you believe it's in her best interest to speak?
We do.
Yes.
And you've talked about this with her?
We
Yes.
have.
And you know the whole world is watching her words, her voice, everything will be publicized, or could be.
Yes.
Yes.
And you think that she can handle that?
We do.
Yes.
And no one has forced, threatened, coerced you, paid you anything, promised you anything for this, is that correct?
No.
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 It's not correct, or it is
It's
correct?
correct.
That is correct.
All right.
It's one of those double negatives we in America do. I just need to make sure it's correct for the record.
Yes. It's
All
correct.
right. So at this time, I will ask your daughters to step forward and give me their name and spell their names, and you can come close to them or however you wish. And if they need help, you can give them a hug or whatever you need to do. All right, so for the record, who's going first?
I am.
The younger one?
Oh, older one.
The older one? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I'm sorry. Okay. And could you tell me your name and spell it?
My name's Kara Johnson, KaraJohnson. And I would just like to thank you again for letting us share our story.
You may proceed.
Your Honor, I would like to address the defendant.
You may.
I am writing this in response to your actions, Mr. Nassar, for not following proper medical conduct and, in result, exploiting hundreds of young girls, including myself, at such a vulnerable time. The pain you have caused me mentally and emotionally is unexplainable and has been impacting my life heavily, especially these past few months. I am currently a senior in high school. I should be focusing on my classes, exams, upcoming tennis season, and college search. Instead, I am here, and have been here for months, hoping that after this is all over, I can finally be a senior in high school again. You took advantage of your authoritative powers as my doctor, and in result took my innocence instead of healing me. I am hurt and confused, as you placed me into a position that not only made me insecure, but was extremely inappropriate and uncomfortable. I remembered the anxiety I would have entering the office, knowing how the appointment would most likely go, and telling myself it was normal to feel that queasy ache in the pit of my stomach, that you were performing those procedures for the right reasons. I remember telling myself that you were safe and that I should trust you with my body, as you were a doctor for athletes across the country that I looked up to. My dad is a DO, and you knew that at the time when I was your patient. When he would show up to my appointments with me, you wouldn't do your typical procedure that I became used to you performing. I was uncomfortable at the appointments without my father, but maintained trust in you, as the framed images of the patients on your wall told an incredible story of a great doctor who could heal anyone. I remember the one appointment that has been played over and over in my mind, and has given me nightmares still to this day. You had me get an x-ray for my hips and back, and then check them out, with a strange obsession on how my hips were not fully developed yet, and that you could tell my period had not started. You then made me change into those strange shorts you had in your cabinet, shorts that were so big I was swimming in, and that gave you easy access to my body. I was told to lay stomach down on the table, where you proceeded to stack white towels between my mom and I and adjust the table to an angle where she couldn't see, which I remember feeling weird about. I immediately shut down all of those thoughts as I told myself you were going to fix me, and that it was okay to feel uncomfortable, that you were going to heal my pain. You then pulled my shorts down, moved my underwear over to the side, and started touching me, without consent, without telling me what you were going to do, and if that wasn't bad enough, with your gloveless hands. You had your eyes closed and continued to molest me. After a few minutes of this, you just left the room, leaving my mom and I extremely uncomfortable while my bare butt was out. You came back into the room 5 minutes later with a tube of some kind of lubricant. You then continued this procedure using the lubricant, and I began to feel numb down there. I then at that point Wondered how what you were doing would fix the pain I had from jamming my hip after a cross-country race. After about 30 minutes of this, you smacked my butt, said, "All right, we are done here, sweetie," and then pulled up my shorts. You said quietly to me that if I was ever on my period during one of your appointments, to let you know, so you could change things up a bit. After that appointment, I was supposed to go back to school, but everything seemed cloudy and I had the urge to shower, as I felt dirty and gross. I took a 45-minute shower that day, and that feeling never left. I was only 13 years old. You manipulated me into believing that you were the only doctor that could fix me, and that I had to have you or no one at all, and for so long I believed that to be true. I still cannot get over the grief that you have caused me by creating the false relationship of trust and custody, and I cannot believe that I felt safe and in good hands when I was with you. You fooled me, telling me of your family stories, telling jokes to attempt to make me more comfortable, and liking my social media posts. Some of the things that I now realize were major red flags and should have never been tolerated. I should have went with my gut and told someone that something felt very off. But how was I supposed to know at the age of 13 what was medically acceptable and what the boundaries were? I am disgusted by your actions and with the fact that even under investigation, you had the ability and power to continue these procedures on patients such as I without following the medical restrictions you were placed under. These few months have been extremely difficult for me, as I have been struggling through depression and fighting off suicidal thoughts. I assumed I was going crazy, but after hearing all of these other girls speak, I'm realizing that I'm not crazy at all, and that I am suffering from something you did to me for so many years. I never used to question the purpose of my life, and I never used to have nightmares about being raped, which is something that I'm now extremely paranoid about, even though it has never happened to me. You have placed so much fear in my life, Larry, and I will never be able to get back what you have taken so effortlessly from me. Your actions, along with all of the other actions of abusers in this country, shall not go unnoticed. Trust is a hard thing to earn, and personally has been something much harder to develop since you've molested me. I now know that I cannot second-guess myself when it comes to decisions with my body, and it sickens me to know that I was not the only one who had her innocence taken away without even truly knowing what was going on. It is terrifying how sick perpetrators like you are given the power to do such terrible things to innocent children for so long and almost get away with it. So many people believed you were innocent, as you have brainwashed us all into believing that you were someone of great medical integrity. And I am angry at those who have been shutting down this case for so many years, and who have not taken the degree of this sexual abuse seriously. I used to be sorry. I felt bad that you had to touch me, and I grew very insecure. I am so glad that I no longer have to feel bad for you, and am glad that you will be paying for your actions the rest of your life. You are now a powerless man. God knows of all the innocent victims you took advantage of, and the acts of betrayal you have performed. The Lord is my shield, and I know that through him I am capable of all things, and that I will persevere through this, and that even the most evil of sins like the ones you have committed cannot destroy who I am, and will have major consequences that will follow you for the rest of your life. God has spoken to me these past few days, and I'm finally starting to leave the dark place I have been in for so long. You cannot take advantage of me anymore, Mr. Nassar, and for that I am grateful. Due to your malpractice and of the pain you have caused all victims, I believe that you should be in prison for a minimum of 40 years to reflect on what you have done. Your Honor, I would like to thank you again for allowing me to share my statement today.
You are very brave. You're not in darkness anymore. You're in lightness. You have just opened doors, along with your sister survivors, for others to speak out, and that's really important. And he can't fool you, as you've said, but he also can't fool anybody else who's heard your words. You're a tower of strength, and with your sister, who I'm going to hear from in a moment, your sister survivor, you also have all of the sister survivors. You are all in this horrible club, but you know what? It's also a great club because you're all powers of strength who are going to get past this, and your message is being heard by the world. And I know you're going to graduate, congratulations, from high school and go on to college and keep talking to men and women alike about this, because college is another place where we see this happening over and over and over again to young people who don't know or put themselves in bad situations. And I know you will be one of those voices that they will listen to. So you are a proud example. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Please state and spell your name for the record.
Madeline, Madeline, Johnson, Johnsson.
And how old are you today?
15.
And you're comfortable speaking?
Yes.
All right, very good. You seem very confident. So I want to hear those words nice and loud, all right?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. The first time I went to see Nassar, I was 12 years old. Being the little gymnast I was beyond excited I had the opportunity to have Nassar as my doctor. He was spoken so highly of, as he was known as the gymnastics doctor. I was slowly injuring my back more and more with every practice, until one night my pain was so bad I couldn't even breathe without breaking down into tears. My parents were contemplating whether or not to take me to the ER, but my mom insisted she would just text Nassar to get me into an appointment, as this seemed like the most beneficial way to get treatment. My mom texted him, and he got me in right away the next day. I couldn't hardly wait to see Nassar, because with all of the stories I have heard about him supposedly treating Olympic gymnasts, I knew he was capable of finally relieving my back pain. When I walked into his office the next day, I was immediately in awe. His walls were covered with a substantial amount of pictures of Olympic gymnasts, all which included a little message and a signature. I felt so lucky that I got to have the same doctor as all of my idols in the gymnastics world, and the doctor who was known as the best of the best. My appointment with Nassar this day was at least 2 hours long. After he addressed my injuries, he got started into the treatment. Nassar approached so many different techniques, each one relieving my pain by a slight amount. Then, Nassar pulled on my leg to unjam my hip, and at this point, almost all of my back pain was gone, but he still continued to try to fix me. I felt his hands slowly make their way from my lower back down towards the seams of my shorts. He asked me to flip over onto my back, and as I was doing so, he jokingly told me that the next thing might be uncomfortable. Before I could even reply to his comment, he moved his hands up my shorts. He told me he was going to push on my pubic bone, but instead I felt his fingers touch a different part of my body, a part of my body that has never been touched by anyone before. I felt all of my muscles become tense, but I tried to tell myself to relax, because he was a doctor and he knew what he was doing. The next appointment was just for my sister, but I went along too. She was wearing pants, and he made her change into these shorts that he had in a box inside his cabinet. Because of this, I understood that it was also necessary for me to wear shorts every time I had an appointment. I later learned Nassar wanted us to wear loose-fitting shorts so he would have easy access to the places he wanted for his own pleasure. Soon enough, I was back in his office with back pain again. My mom decided my dad should take me to this appointment, as he is a physician, and he could attempt to learn what Nassar was doing so I wouldn't have to go into his office every time I hurt my back. I told my mom I did not want my dad to take me because that would be awkward. My mom asked me why it would be awkward, but I didn't answer this question. I thought that if my mom didn't think what he was doing under my shorts was uncomfortable, then why should I? Before this appointment, I made sure I was showered, as I was preparing for him to have to touch under my shorts again. Once we went over symptoms, he diagnosed me with the same thing as before. My dad was actively watching an attempt to learn what Nassar was doing to help treat me. During this appointment, Nassar didn't place his hands anywhere on my bare skin. I didn't even have to remove my sweatpants to reveal my shorts I had under them. After this appointment, I remember thinking about him not doing the same things as he did before, but I never mentioned it as I felt uncomfortable talking about it, and it did not seem important or necessary to say. Once again, I injured my back. I followed through with the same routine of making sure I was clean before I went in and remembering to wear shorts under my sweatpants. By this time, my mom and I thought we were going to know what we were expecting, so my mom did not pay much attention to what Nassar was doing. I was lying on my back, and Nassar slowly slipped his hands up my shorts, this time saying nothing about what he was doing before he started. He didn't only touch inappropriate areas, but he moved my underwear to the side and his ungloved hands massaged my bare skin. Once he began this, I looked over at my mom, but she was looking down. I looked at Nassar, only to see his body was blocking my hips, so even if my mom did look up, she could not see what he was doing to me. His face was turned away from me, his eyes closed and squinting, and he was heavily concentrated on what he was doing. Nassar did this for roughly 5 minutes, then said, "Okay, kiddo," and made me turn over onto my stomach. He would then push on my lower back, which relieved pain for the moment, but once he stopped, it immediately returned. He asked me for my pain level, and I told him it was the same as before, the answer I'm sure he wanted to hear. He repeated this procedure several times until I realized the only way I could get him to stop was if I lied and said my pain was all gone. He had me lie on my back, and he yanked on my leg to unjam my hips, and that's when my back actually felt a little better. After this appointment, I knew my back was slowly getting worse, and Nassar's treatment was no longer helping me. I felt uncomfortable and extremely dirty after leaving these appointments. My mom asked me if my back actually felt better, and I lied to her saying it did because I didn't want her to know that Nassar couldn't help me. I also didn't want her to question me on why I was lying to him about my pain levels. I felt so guilty and confused that I had felt uncomfortable with how this professional doctor with such a well-known reputation was treating me. Just as I was about to go to bed one night, an old friend texted me a video link. I clicked on the link, not knowing what to expect. This video was Rachel's video. As she went on talking about Larry Nassar sexually abusing her, I was in shock. I didn't know what to think. I ran up the stairs to tell my mom all about this video, but before I could finish explaining myself, she told me she already saw it. My mom and I sat there in silence for a while, and I felt so sick. I was thinking about all the appointments I had with Nassar, trying to decide if this was abuse or strictly a doctor's treatment. I woke up the next morning, and I had felt a feeling I have never felt all 14 years of my life. I went to school and wanted nothing more than to be invisible the entire day. I did not want anyone to approach me, to talk to me, or to touch me. How I was feeling this day is difficult to describe, but it's something I will never forget and something I hope I never have to feel again. For a while, I didn't believe I was one of these sexually abused victims. I later learned that this was not true. I tried rejecting the fact that I was molested by Nassar because it seemed like the easiest way to cope. I now know I was struggling so hard to decide if it was abuse or not, because I knew if I admitted to myself that it was, it would change my life so much, and it did. I always knew what Nassar did to treat me was uncomfortable, but at only 12 years old, I had no idea that it was inappropriate, illegal, and wrong. He was the doctor, I was the child, I had no idea what to think. I will never be able to stress enough how much he manipulated my family and I so he could build a strong trust with us. We put all of our trust into this man, and he had such a high title and name to live up to in the gymnastics world and to athletes in general. Nassar spent so much time on me and acted like he really, truly cared about me. Your Honor, may I speak to the defendant?
You may.
Larry, you used to be everything to all gymnasts and athletes, and now you are nothing more than a disgusting monster. You used your power and title to hurt me mentally and emotionally. You abused me, an innocent 12-year-old girl, for your own sick pleasures. You spent so much time on me, acting like you truly cared about me. Today, I am a 15-year-old girl, and throughout my years in high school, I have struggled with trust, confidence, good judgment, and for these past few weeks especially, achieving my academic goals. Everyone thinks of me as a physically and mentally strong person, but today I'm admitting to spending countless nights crying alone in my room, suffering from feeling worthless and lost. For the longest time, you deprived me of my happiness, the ability to sleep at night, and feeling of being secure. Because of you, every time I hear someone call me kiddo as you did, I think of the face you made while you were abusing me. You called me that, reassuring to yourself that I was a young, naive girl. There's a point in everyone's life when they outgrow those extraordinary dreams they had hoped they could achieve as a child and reality kicks in, when they realize the world isn't what they used to think it was. Larry, you took this from me at 12 years old. I used to be such a joyful girl and believed everyone could be forgiven for the mistakes they had made. You made me afraid of the world. I will never forget about the pain I have suffered. But Larry, after today I will no longer suffer. but I will be joyful that you will never be able to lay your hands on another girl again. You will no longer deprive me of life. Your Honor, sometimes I think it would be easiest for me if I never knew about Nassar's abuse, but I quickly remind myself that this would be the worst case possible. If he wasn't behind bars now, he would be hurting more and more young girls with each day that passed. What he did will stick with us victims, will stay with us for the rest of our lives. Therefore, because we have to live with it, he should be sentenced to the maximum amount of years and locked up for the rest of his life. Thank you.
Thank you. I have heard you and your sister survivor speaking out as you have done, as your sister has done, as all victims have done, so victim survivors have done, helps others. And I hear that loud and clear in your insightful, youthful voice. That's what you want to do, and that's one of the reasons you and your sister are here. The world is a better place because of what you've just said and done, and both of you should be very proud of yourself. I know that now you don't feel like the world is a great place, but it really, really is. I've heard what all of you have said, and you're so wise at your tender age. And I'm taking into consideration everything in regard to sentencing. You are both worthy of everything wonderful. Don't let him take that away from you, because then he wins. And I know that your sister talked about suicide. You didn't, but I suspect you, like most of the other survivor victims, have thought about it. Please, don't. You're here today because you want a happier world and a happier life. If you leave us, he wins. I've said it to others, I'll keep saying it, because suicide's never, ever an answer. You have some incredible parents here with you. So if there are any issues, I hope that you turn to them and continue to get help. He will be behind bars, and that should make you feel safer, and you should leave the grief and sadness and unworthiness here in this courtroom. We'll sweep it away. When we take him away.
Thank you.
Live happy lives. Thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you.
Your Honor, could I read a short statement?
Yes, you may.
I'm here today to address Larry Nassar, both as an osteopathic physician and the father of two beautiful girls that were cared and abused by you. Before I begin, I would like to say how proud I am of each and every survivor in this courtroom. I will never forget your stories and the pain in your voices as you so courageously tell all those stories that we've heard. As a physician, we are given the great privilege to care for our patients. What a wonderful and beautiful privilege this is. Our patients trust us with their most intimate problems, their fears, their bodies, and their history. They trust that we will care for them with compassion and respect and love, that we will do no harm. They place their trust in us without knowing us because we are physicians. We make mistakes, and occasionally these unintentional mistakes cause harm. This causes us great pain. We carry these stories with us forever, never forgetting the patient we harmed, and never forgetting the pain we caused. We learn from this and we try to improve and become better caregivers, better physicians. This is not your story, Larry. The pain you caused was intentional. You did not care for these young girls with compassion, respect, and love. Your care was selfish, not selfless. Your story is dark, sinister, and pure evil. You preyed on the most vulnerable. You preyed on innocence, and you preyed on trust. You preyed on little girls and young women, God's children, and he weeps with us. Your story is very different, Larry. Your story starts with sick, perverse, and ungodly intentions. You are not a physician. You are a pedophile. You only used your degree as a platform to sexually abuse your patients, one by one, for your sick, and your very perverse pleasure. You groomed your victims and plotted a course full of deceit and abuse. I hope that you have heard each and every story, and I pray that these voices resonate in you forever. You were once known as one of the elite physicians in your profession. Now and forever, you will go down in history as one of the worst humankind has to offer. A child molester, a predator, an abuser, a pedophile. You cannot escape this identity. And to each and every institution that deny responsibility for this, shame on you. For a moment, I ask that you close your eyes and think of your daughter. Do you remember her innocence? Can you see her smile? Hear her youthful laughter? Now imagine her being sexually assaulted by this man. Can you hear her scream? Or is it silent? This is our reality, and these were our children. If after that disturbing thought, after that disturbing image, you can continue to deny responsibility for fostering this abuse and allowing this monster to continue with his practice, then you have denied the truth. You have learned nothing. These institutions emphasize the importance of safe spaces. Ironically, the only safe place that was created was a safe place for Larry Nassar to molest children and young women without boundaries and without oversight. I ask you, where was a safe place for all the abused, for all of these survivors? Thank you, Your Honor.
Dustin, thank you for that very compassionate, enlightening letter and your words. May we have a copy of it?
I'm sorry.
May we have a copy of what you said, or
Yes,
do
you
we
may.
already have a copy?
No, you don't.
All right.
Yes.
Sir, I know you're speaking on behalf of your daughters, but really you're speaking on behalf of all children, and you know as a trained physician, as a good physician, that's what you are to do. And I'm so thankful that you're here and for your words, because everybody needs to hear that, and doctors need to be reminded of that. Patients need to be reminded that they can tell you anything, and if something's wrong, tell another doctor who will report it. And hopefully we have that change, because so many people didn't report here. And that's why it's so important for you all to be here. So I applaud you, and I know that your children are in great hands, and I can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
Judge, I just realized, as I've done in prior mornings, that I have not updated the court as to the number of impact statements. As of this morning, that number is 120.
Well, and as I've said, I'll give you as much time as you need. I'm clearing out my docket as we speak. So for those of you who want to be here, it looks like with that number, we'll see where we land today. We may be into Tuesday, although we're going pretty rapidly. I don't know. I just don't want to give anybody a hope that we'll finish Monday. It sounds to me like it may be Tuesday, and every day there's more added. So we'll see.
Your Honor, the next survivor to speak is Marie Anderson, and I believe she just recently decided to be publicly identified. She is accompanied by her parents, and I have a photograph of her on the screen as well.
Thank you. Mom and Dad, you can come closer if you would like, next to her. Ready?
Yes.
Please state and spell your name for the record, and then once you read, please read slowly, okay?
Okay.
All right, thank you. Please state and spell your name.
Marie Anderson, MarieAnderson.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm here today to talk with you about my experiences with Larry Nassar at Michigan State University sports medicine when I was 15 years old. I was a swimmer and having issues with my lower back. During my visits to MSU for back pain, Larry claimed that I needed pelvic adjustments. He would have me lie on the exam table, face up, and place my legs open like you would during a vaginal exam, but without stirrups. He would move his fingers around the outside of my vagina and anus. Then he would insert his fingers into my vagina and move them around inside of me, as well as move his fingers in and out. While his fingers were inside of me, he would also apply pressure with his other hand to the outside of my lower abdomen and massage the inside and outside of my vaginal area. This happened visit after visit. Saying this out loud to you is extremely uncomfortable for me, and I'm sure for everyone who is listening. It is supposed to be uncomfortable. I would be doing myself and the other brave women here a great disservice by shying away from what is now my truth. As I discover that this invasive treatment was not in the best interest of my health, I cannot help but reflect on the impact the entire treatment plan had during an impressionable time in my life. At the age of 15, I was naive to sexual intercourse and recall pain and embarrassment. I had my mom or dad in the room that, to my humiliation, witnessed this happening, all under the impression that they were taking me to the best available. The impact this has had on my family is indescribable. My parents, who had my best interest at heart, will forever have to live with the fact that they continually brought their daughter to a sexual predator and were in the room as he assaulted me. I wonder if the treatment plan Larry created was intended to keep me coming back in order to continue the assault. As I look back at the treatment, I remember I did not find relief with the methods that he used. I was in a full back brace and on crutches under his treatment plan. I was a sophomore in high school, and I experienced a magnitude of harsh mocking from my peers because of the large brace over my clothes paired with the crutches. This led to a multitude of hurdles, including a lack of confidence and difficulty in social situations that I still face today. I visited a therapist to discuss these issues, and I believe I will need to continue therapy for these issues, as well as the realization that I am a victim of sexual assault. The impact this continued assault had on my childhood and my growth as an adult is something I'm forced to confront and will cope with indefinitely. My perspective of medical professionals is damaged, and I have a difficult time trusting treatment opinions because I feel that I have been deceived, manipulated, and used to satisfy Larry's sexual desires. I will never regain what I've lost, and I will learn to cope with the lack of faith in a system that failed me. From Larry Nassar to the institutions that supported him for many, many years. As an alumni of Michigan State University, I am disgusted to my core that this man was able to harm so many under their responsibility. The pride I had in my alma mater is tarnished and diminishing as this continues to progress. I didn't choose to stand and publicly share my story until earlier this week. Last year, when headlines started coming out about the assault, and I had filed my report, I was sitting alone for lunch at McAllister's Deli. It was crowded, and the ladies sitting at the table next to me were having a conversation about their friend, Larry. I sat frozen as they talked about these girls who were making up these lies just for the attention. Little did they know that one of those girls, who I promise you would have been very happy with no attention at all, was sitting next to them with tears falling down onto her plate. As I stand here today, I am not the woman sitting in McAllister's, unable to find the voice to give these grown women a piece of her mind. I am also not the 15-year-old kid afraid of disappointing the adults in her life. I am able to stand here today in front of my abuser with an army of strong, powerful women behind me, asking that this man that hurt all of us withers away for the rest of his life. I have a choice to make every day on how I will grow. And while we all are moving mountains, you, Larry, will have no choice but to sit in prison and wait to die. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you so much. You aren't just moving mountains, you are saving others' lives as well who have heard your strong voice. You are strong and powerful to the core. You are confident. You are more than just a survivor victim. I think you are unstoppable. Your words ring so true, and they are meaningful beyond this courtroom, beyond this town. Across the world, people are hearing you, and you're making a difference. You're not letting those other people who didn't listen to you, who didn't want to listen to you, who are in that next booth, not knowing who you are. They know who you are. We have heard you. You are strong. You've made a tidal wave, and it's growing. Thank you so much for being here. You're amazing.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Judge, I'm told the next survivor initially had asked us to read on her behalf, but she is going to be reading this. Is that my understanding? Okay. And you know what? Your Honor, this is Amy Lavity, and her mother and her boyfriend are accompanying her at the podium. And I have placed on the screen a photograph of Amy as well.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Could you please state and spell your name for the record?
Yes. Amy Labadie,
AMYLABADIE.
Thank you. What would you like me to know?
On September 12th, 2016, I was getting ready for bed and was on my phone looking through news articles and came across the article that was published in the Indy Star about Nassar, former USA gymnastics doctor accused of abuse. I can still remember reading this and not being able to comprehend what I was reading at first, and thinking, there is no way this is true. This can't be true. I remember telling Steve, did you read the article about the gymnastics doctor? And him asking me. I gave him a brief recount about the victim and what Nassar did to her. I remember him saying something like, it's a horrible world sometimes. I guess we will see how it unfolds. And then I just dropped to the floor. I swear I went completely blank after that, and it almost felt like I blacked out from the world. I know he asked me if that happened to me, and I told him yes, but went silent with words for the majority of the night. It was one of those cries so intense that you can't speak. I was in complete shock and had no idea at the time the immense emotions my body was going through. Steve just kept trying to hug me, and I kept pushing away and sobbing. The next day, I went through the workday feeling the worst I have ever felt in my entire life, not knowing how I was going to tell my mom. When I got home from work, I took my dog for a walk and then called her. I asked her if she had read the article. She said no. I explained that I was about to tell her something horrible, that it was not her fault. I told her about Nassar molesting me during the doctor's visits at MSU Sports Medicine when we went down there for my back injury. I told her I couldn't believe that I didn't know he molested me until I read the article. She asked me questions like, what do you mean? I was in the room with you. How could he have done this to you while I was there? I had to explain that he must have done it in a way that she could not see his hands. I asked her if Nassar asked if he could do this to me, or if she could think of any reason why this could be. She said no to all of it. I remember being in complete denial, hoping my mom could do what she always does and comfort me, as she always does. But nothing she said to me could take away the shock that was running through my body. I loved gymnastics. I started at the age of 7 or 8 and was competing level 5 by the age of 9. It was everything to me to put on my long sleeve Leo, warm-up jacket, slick back my hair with an inch of gel, so tightly secured with my scrunchies. I competed all the way through high school. My family devoted so much time to driving me to practice, 4 to 5 days a week, and traveling around the state and country to meets all these years. In August of 2005, I sought out Nassar in hopes of getting treatment for my back. It was recommended I go see him after months and months of pain. He was said to be a world-renowned doctor, the best gymnastics doctor in the world. It made me and everybody that knew him believe he was a doctor that could fix you. Frankly, I was starstruck to even be walking into his office. Doctors of his high of stature, and any doctor, are to be inherently trusted. I now realize this level of celebrity status was a strong basis for his manipulation. Between August and December of 2005, I went down to Michigan State Sports Medicine office 3 to 4 times. The first time I walked into his office, he had me put on these shorts. They had a drawstring, but the bottoms of these shorts were really wide. There was no one else in the room aside from my mother and gymnastics coach. When he put his fingers in my vagina and anus, he would move my legs back and forth while holding my knee. I remember the pain I felt from him rubbing my legs and back. I remember this lasting for a long time. He sexually assaulted me while he was supposed to be healing me. He did this for the pleasure of his own good, not for any other reason. I ended up getting a bacterial infection after he did this one of the times because he put his fingers from my anus to my vagina without gloves. He never wore gloves when he did this. I had no idea what he was doing and that it was sexual assault or any type of abuse. As a 16-year-old, I had never been touched in this way before. But looking back on it now, it is absolutely disgusting to think about. The same thing happened every single time I saw him at Michigan State University. In January of 2006, I was at my team's season kickoff meet, the Vegas-style Invitational in Lansing, Michigan, hosted by Twistars Gymnastics and the infamous John Geddert. This was always my favorite meet of the year, not only because it was the first meet of the year, but also because Twistars was known as the best gym in the state. I always wished my parents would move to Lansing so I could go to Twistars. Little did I know. It was at this meet that I was sexually assaulted on 2 separate occasions by Nassar. He took me into the back locker room that connected between the meet and the Twistars training gym. I remember my mom asking, "Do you want me to come with you two?" And him saying no. He had me take my clothes off and molested me on the training table. He then had me put my Leo back on. We went into the Twistars gym while he watched me flip. He molested me again and sent me on my way to my competition. My vagina was sore during my competition because of this man. How disgusting is that to even say out loud? It baffles me that John Geddard would knowingly allow his team's doctor to see patients during their hosted meet with no documentation of who Nassar was seeing or what they were being treated for. Actually, it doesn't baffle me at all. It makes perfect sense. John Geddard was Larry Nassar's Bonnie to his Clyde. As much as we would like to sit here and think Nassar got away with this and no one knew, that's bullshit. John knew. I went to school at Michigan State University from 2007 to 2011 and graduated with a degree from Eli Broad College of Business. One of the main reasons I chose this school is because I accepted the position of the team manager for MSU Gymnastics. I was the manager for the team for 3 years. I volunteered 20 to 40 hours a week during school to go to all the practices, travel to all the meets, and spend countless hours building team camaraderie outside of the gym. I loved it. I loved the girls, I loved the dedication, and surely loved being in the gym. I used to be so proud to tell people I was the manager of the gymnastics team. I gave MSU my everything. But that has all changed now. I can't get over the fact that MSU could have done something to prevent this from happening to me. And the individuals that turned a blind eye to the monster that is Larry Nassar. I no longer am proud to have graduated from Michigan State University. I have lost all hope that the institution of this stature is trustworthy and has the students' and athletes' best interest at heart. I have suffered mentally over the last year and a half, which has greatly affected my home and work life. I will out of nowhere become angry and get in fights with my boyfriend about things that I never would have in the past. I sometimes take it out on Steve like it's his fault, but it's not. I just can't get this monster out of my head. I used to be able to work much more efficiently and never let my emotions get in the way of my success. The depression from this has caused me to miss work more than I ever used to and not be able to stay positive on work days. It is impossible to suppress the negative emotions and anger that are from Nassar's conduct. I am doing my best to keep this job and pray every day that I get through this. I know I'm going to have to seek medical advice to get through all of this. You have to understand, though, it's not easy even thinking about going to see a doctor. I don't trust doctors anymore. Now I will always struggle with letting someone who is called a doctor try to fix you. I feel like I have lost all enjoyment in life. I've never been depressed before, and used to not think depression was even a thing. Until now. I don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to go to work. I don't want to take a shower. I don't want to go out of my house or do anything. I used to go do yoga and play sports with my boyfriend, and haven't done any of that since I found out Nassar assaulted me. I used to spend time with my friends and enjoy myself. But I just feel like I am too anxious and stressed out now to be around anyone. I have lost countless hours of sleep. I have been struggling with the worst nightmares ever. I have lost weight and have trouble eating sometimes because I don't have an appetite. It's disgusting. What Nassar did is affecting my whole life. Work, friendships, my family, my sexual relationship, my physical and mental state. It's hard to see into the future and think that this will not affect me forever. Any way you look at it, I am fearful that if justice is not served, this sets a precedent for other medical professionals out there that could be doing the same thing. All that I can hope for now is that seeing him locked up behind bars for the rest of his life for what he has done to me and all of us will bring some peace in knowing that he will never see the light of day again. I also strongly hope that me standing here today, giving this horrifying impact statement, will provide all of the people of this world the strength to know when a monster is in front of your face, and that no job, no status, no level of greatness, and no gold medals are worth hundreds of little girls being sexually assaulted. We must find a way to prevent this from happening ever again. Children are naive and do not have voices, but we as adults do. The force of these other women and myself is fierce. Come hell or high water, we will take every last one of you down that could have stopped this monster. Thank you.
Thank you. Your words, your fierce words, your fierceness will help prevent not only this, what you say, it's a monster. I'm not disagreeing, but using your words, this monster, you will prevent him and others like him with your fierceness. I need you to leave your nightmares here with him between the federal court, this court, and Judge Cunningham. He's not getting out. You've given him a nightmare, one that he will relive over and over again. You are joining with your sister survivors in strength, in numbers. The numbers are growing. And your voice matters. You matter. Get out, enjoy your life, because without that, he's winning. Don't let him win. You're right, gold medals, all of that, nothing matters. Life matters. You need to live yours. You have a golden life. I want you to live it.
Okay.
Can you do that?
Yes, I can.
All right, I love the smile. It's back.
Thank you.
Keep it.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes.
Judge, the next survivor to speak just also made the decision to be publicly identified. It's going to be great. This is Ashley Yost, and Ashley's mom. Is that right? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Please state and spell your name for the record.
Ashley Yost, Ashley Yost.
All right. Move right up to the podium so you're next to that microphone. Keep your voice up and just talk at a pace we can understand. And your mom is here with you, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, Mom, if you need to hug her, you're holding hands. That's great. Ready to proceed?
Yes.
Please do.
First, I would like to thank you for allowing not only me, but every other survivor of Larry Nassar speak their truth and have their voices heard. Your Honor, I've started and restarted this impact statement multiple times. That's because I never really knew where to begin. I also feel that Larry Nassar doesn't deserve to know how I've been impacted. He doesn't deserve to know anything about my life anymore. But this letter isn't for him. It's for you, Judge Aquilina.
Thank you.
It's to show you the gravity of his actions and who I am now because of him. This is why I chose to be here today and chose to read this letter myself in front of everyone. I still don't know where to really start this. Everything about this whole situation is chaotic and messy, and my thoughts are never very clear. It feels like I have so much to say about everything, but yet nothing at the same time.
Can you say it a little bit slower?
Yeah.
Thank you.
See. My mind can't really focus on what Larry Nassar did for too long because it seems like it'll be just too much if I do. I thought I knew Nassar. We all thought we did. When I was 16, I job shadowed him in high school. He was the reason I was so interested in the medical field and specializing in sports medicine. He was the reason I wanted to help gymnasts in the future. When I was still thinking of becoming a doctor, I thought it would be the most amazing thing in the world to somehow have him as a mentor. Now I know how wrong all of his intentions were. The first time I stepped into one of the 2 exam rooms Larry Nassar had at MSU Sportsmed, I was 12. The last time was in June of 2016, making me 24. That's 12 years of knowing him and 1/2 of my life being treated by him. He had a reputation for being one of the best gymnastics sports medicine doctors in the world, and for him to be located so close to where I live seemed like the best luck ever. It was only when I reflected on that very first report by Rachel Den Hollander that I began to put the pieces together. Larry Nassar was not treating me, but using me. He was not the best gymnastics sports medicine doctor. He misused his role of power in order to abuse dedicated and hardworking athletes. I don't even consider him to be a doctor anymore because a true doctor cares for their patient's well-being while he narcissistically manipulated his. In Nassar's exam rooms, there were pictures, letters, and gifts dedicated to him from his patients and thanks of how much he had helped them. I always loved walking around the room and reading them, trying to find out the newest thanks of his. Now I see that these were all just trophies to him. He got to see every day how he manipulated people while they had no idea what was going on. He gave me a pin from one of the Olympics he had attended. It made me feel so special at the time. I had it sitting out on my desk and always noticed it whenever I walked by. Now it makes me feel sick. He wanted me to feel special. He wanted me to feel like he really cared, because that's what a person like him does. He would always ask about my family and how they were doing, as well as sharing how his family is doing. He would call me Goof or my Ashley sometimes, and I thought it was out of care and kindness. Now I see how wrong all of that was and how he manipulated me into thinking he actually cared. I also look back seeing how unnecessary his actions were. There were times when he would go through his routine, but without penetration, and I would still feel better. It only clicked with me after all of the news reports how he never should have had to use penetration in the first place if I was able to feel better without it. It also makes sense how he used distraction to never really let me think about what he was doing. He would hold a conversation with me for the entirety of the visit so that I had something to focus on. He used his personal life and his family to make it seem as if he actually cared and would ask about mine as well. It's difficult to say how his actions have fully impacted me. I think that's because I still haven't completely processed everything. Part of me wants to believe that this is all just some horrible nightmare and everything is okay. The other part knows that that's what grooming does to you. It makes you second guess yourself and question reality. It makes you want to feel sympathy towards your assaulter. Because I was groomed for so long, starting at such a young age, this whole ordeal is still something I struggle with. There's one part of me that when hearing the other girls' stories of how he made them feel special has actually made me feel hurt. I know that this reaction is a result of what he did to me. However, there's another part of me that knows I'm a part of this community of strong, and powerful, beautiful, courageous women. In the very beginning of all this, it was difficult to think that he was capable of being this type of person, a monster. My mind fully rejected the thought in the beginning, and for a long time, despite eventually acknowledging the situation, I would dissociate myself from being a part of it. I'm slowly accepting everything for what it is and working on seeing Nassar for the monster he is. That is also why I chose to be here today. The last time I saw Larry, he was still this well-renowned doctor who knew how to help me with my back pain. I was sad that I was going to be treated by him anymore. The mental image I still have is a positive one. I needed to be here today so that I can change that. I need to see what my new reality is. I need to change 12 years worth of knowing a person and feeling that I could trust them completely. I have been in therapy every week for the past year plus, now trying to learn coping skills for my fears and learning to trust myself and instincts again. In the past, I have struggled with anxiety, depression, and suicidal thoughts with no explanation. This was prior to understanding what Nassar had been really doing to me. I still struggle with anxiety and depression, and although I have yet to completely accept all the events that have happened this past year, I do have these moments where reality hits me, and it hits hard. I feel like I can't breathe, I can't think straight, and everything feels upside down. And this is something my family has to deal with. Sorry. They have to watch me have these breakdowns, and I know it hurts them because there's nothing they can really do to help. I have to work through it on my own. My brain has to process the magnitude of the situation. I still try to keep my breakdowns private so that my family doesn't have to suffer the consequences of Nassar's actions. But I remember one breakdown in particular.
Would you like a chair, ma'am?
No, sorry, I can't see because the tears real quick.
Just got Kleenex right there. Take as long as you need.
That would be helpful. Do you know where it is? Okay. I had had a complete moment of clarity and understanding of who Nassar really is and what he's done, and I ran into my parents' room sobbing out of control. I remember grabbing my head and banging it on the bed, trying to get the thoughts out. I also remember vaguely hearing my parents in the background trying to calm me down. It took a while, but I managed to calm down with their help and sleeping in their bed for the rest of the night. That's something a 25-year-old shouldn't have to do, sleep in their parents' bed because they're afraid of the monster. But it's happened more than once now, and to be honest, I'm not sure when it will stop. Another thing that's affected me is how I view doctors. I'm very picky about what doctor I see, and that's because I was born with an autoinflammatory disease. Larry Nassar used to be one of my favorite doctors. It always seemed like he was trying to help my disease, make it better, and I was so grateful for that. Now I know this was a part of his manipulation. I'll never know if he truly cared about my disease and my health, or if it was all just a facade in order to get me to see him again. Now when I see doctors, I can't help but second guess their intentions, and I'm never alone with them. I need someone there with me in order to feel comfortable and safe. This is also something a 25-year-old shouldn't have to do. Right now, because of all of this, I don't trust males at all. Apart from my immediate family and only a few select friends, I don't want to have any interaction with them. I don't like them being near me. I don't like having to talk to them, and the thought of ever being in a relationship right now makes me feel nauseated. This response might seem extreme, but I can't seem to help it right now. My anxiety skyrockets whenever I have to interact with a guy. My anxiety seems to worsen in general. Things that shouldn't make me anxious in life now cause me worry. At times there doesn't have to be anything going wrong for me to all of a sudden feel this heavy weight on my chest, and like I can't breathe. These types of attacks happen more often than I wish they did. And when I'm in that moment, it seems as if it'll never stop. The hardest part about this whole thing is that I'll never know why. Why Larry Nassar did this. Why he chose to prey on children, and what his fascination with gymnastics is. I'll never know if he even cared about the health of his patients, or if being a doctor was just a way to get easier access to victims. Has he always been like this, or did he become like this over time? As someone who has their degree in psychology, I will never understand why all of this happened. It's one thing to be an outside observer to something such as this than it is to have it directly happen to you. The fact that I'll never have answers to so many questions is something I struggle with daily. I know that accepting this fact is something I'll have to come to terms with, but right now I'm still confused, angry, and hurt. I think a part of me will always be this way, and the feeling will just get less and less over time. I know I'll never be the same person that I was before I found out the truth. So much about me and the way I view life has changed, some of it good and some bad. I also know that my brain is still continuing to absorb and process all the information, and that's okay. One day, I will have complete clarity of the person Larry Nassar is, and I'll be able to handle it. I know my breakdowns and anxiety attacks are temporary. I know that even though sometimes I just want to give in and hide away from everyone, I'm stronger than what happened to me. I refuse to let a monster control the rest of my life. So even if my voice has been shaking this entire time, or I've started to cry, it doesn't matter. I'm here, standing on my own 2 feet, in front of my assaulter, and I hope he and everyone else in this room knows who will win this battle in the end. Thank you.
You and your sister survivors have won it. Rachel started it. You are all winning. All of us judges have heard you. I hear you in regard to sentencing. You can't make sense of crime. Your why will not be answered.
I know.
I think that's okay with you. You are in control. You proved that here today. You need to leave your anxiety here and live your life. There's nothing confusing about what you've said. You said in what you read that you're confused. You're not confused. You have clarity. You got that because you were writing that, I think. And as you stand here publicly and acknowledge that you are strong, that you are able to face him, tell him what he did, you are helping heal not just yourself, but countless others, and making others strong with your words. That counts for so much. I've heard you. I will do the right thing, I hope. Maybe not everybody will agree with it. That's my decision to make. But you and your sister survivors have been and will be part of all of that. Stand tall, keep talking. You are in control.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you.
We need to take 15 minutes. That's all for this record. We'll return in 15. All right.
Judges, you've noted the number has changed during the course of the week, and the next survivor you will hear from is one of those women who had reached out and requested to come and speak today. I am so happy she did. She has previously been publicly identified, however, I will let you know, as I've indicated, she is on the screen. Allie Raceman will be the next survivor you hear from.
Good morning. Thank you
Good
for
morning.
being here.
Thank you.
Please state and spell your name for the record.
Okay. ALEXANDRARAISMAN.
Thank you. What would you like me to know?
Your Honor, thank you for the opportunity to make this statement here today. And thank you for providing the time and flexibility for all the other brave survivors to make their statement. Each survivor deserves to be heard equally. I didn't think I would be here today. I was scared and nervous. It wasn't until I started watching the impact statements from the other brave survivors that I realized I too needed to be here. Larry, you do realize now that we, this group of women you so heartlessly abused over such a long period of time, are now a force and you are nothing. The tables have turned, Larry. We are here. We have our voices, and we are not going anywhere. And now, Larry, it's your turn to listen to me. There is no map that shows you the pathway to healing. Realizing that you are a survivor of sexual abuse is really hard to put into words. I cannot adequately capture the level of disgust I feel when I think about how this happened. Larry, you abused the power and trust I and so many others placed in you, and I am not sure I will ever come to terms with how horribly you manipulated and violated me. You were the USA Gymnastics national team doctor, the Michigan team doctor. You were trusted by so many and took advantage of countless athletes and their families. The effects of your actions are far-reaching. Abuse goes way beyond the moment, often haunting survivors for the rest of their lives, making it difficult to trust and impacting their relationships. It is all the more devastating when such abuse comes at the hand of such a highly regarded doctor, since it leaves survivors questioning the organizations and even the medical profession itself upon which so many rely. I am here to face you, Larry, so you can see I've regained my strength, that I'm no longer a victim, I'm a survivor. I am no longer that little girl you met in Australia where you first began grooming and manipulating. As for your letter yesterday, you are pathetic to think that anyone would have any sympathy for you. You think this is hard for you? Imagine how all of us feel. Imagine how it feels to be an innocent teenager in a foreign country, hearing a knock on the door, and it's you. I don't want you to be there, but I don't have a choice. Treatments with you were mandatory. You took advantage of that. You even told on us if we didn't want to be treated by you, knowing full well the troubles that would cause for us. Lying on my stomach with you on my bed, insisting that your inappropriate touch would help to heal my pain. The reality is you caused me a great deal of physical, mental, and emotional pain. You never healed me. You took advantage of our passions and our dreams. You made me uncomfortable, and I thought you were weird. But I felt guilty because you were a doctor, so I assumed I was the problem for thinking badly of you. I wouldn't allow myself to believe that the problem is you. From the time we were little, we are taught to trust doctors. You are so sick, I can't even comprehend how angry I feel when I think of you. You lied to me and manipulated me to think that when you treated me, you were closing your eyes because you had been working hard when you were really touching me, an innocent child, to pleasure yourself. Imagine feeling like you have no power and no voice. Well, you know what, Larry? I have both power and voice, and I am only beginning to just use them. All these brave women have power, and we will use our voices to make sure you get what you deserve. A life of suffering spent replaying the words delivered by this powerful army of survivors. I am also here to tell you to your face, Larry, that you have not taken gymnastics away from me. I love this sport, and that love is stronger than the evil that resides in you and those who enabled you to hurt many people. You already know you're going away to a place where you won't be able to hurt anybody ever again. But I am here to tell you that I will not rest until every last trace of your influence on this sport has been destroyed like the cancer it is. Your abuse started 30 years ago, but that's just the first reported incident we know of. If over these many years just one adult listened and had the courage and character to act, this tragedy could have been avoided. I and so many others would have never, ever met you. Larry, you should have been locked up a long, long time ago. Fact is, we have no idea how many people you victimized or what was done or not done that allowed you to keep doing it and to get away with it for so long. Over those 30 years, when survivors came forward, adult after adult, many in positions of authority protected you, telling each survivor it was okay, that you weren't abusing them. In fact, many adults had you convince the survivors that they were being dramatic or had been mistaken. This is like being violated all over again. How do you sleep at night? You were decorated by USA Gymnastics and the United States Olympic Committee, both of which put you on advisory boards and committees to come up with policies that would protect athletes from this kind of abuse. You are the person they had, quote, take the lead of athlete care. You are the person they say, quote, provided the foundation for our medical system. I cringe to think that your influence remains in the policies that are supposed to keep athletes safe, that these organizations have for years claimed, quote, state of the art. To believe in the future of gymnastics is to believe in change. But how are we to believe in change when these organizations aren't even willing to acknowledge the problem? It's easy to put out statements talking about how athlete care is the highest priority, but they've been saying that for years, and all the while this nightmare was happening. False assurances from organizations are dangerous, especially when people want so badly to believe them. They make it easier to look away from the problem and enable bad things to continue to happen. And even now, after all that has happened, USA Gymnastics has the nerve to say the very same things it has said all along. Can't you see how disrespectful that is? Can't you see how much that hurts? A few days ago, USA Gymnastics put out a statement attributed to its president and CEO, Carrie Perry, saying she came to listen to the courageous women and said, quote, their powerful voices leave an indelible imprint on me and will impact my decision as president and CEO every day. This sounds great, Miss Perry, but at this point, talk is cheap. You left midway through the day and no one has heard from you or the board. Carrie, I have never met you, and I know you weren't around for most of this, but you accepted the position of President and CEO of USA Gymnastics, and I assume by now you are very well aware of the weighty responsibility you've taken on. Unfortunately, you've taken on an organization that I feel is rotting from the inside, and while this may not be what you thought you were getting into, you will be judged by how you deal with it. A word of advice. Continuing to issue statements of empty promises, thinking that will pacify us, will no longer work. Yesterday, USA Gymnastics announced that it was terminating its lease at the ranch, where so many of us were abused. I am glad that it is no longer a national team training site, but USA Gymnastics neglected to mention that they had athletes training there the day they released the statement. USA Gymnastics, where is the honesty? Where is the transparency? Why must the manipulation continue? Neither USA Gymnastics nor the USOC have reached out to express sympathy or even offer support. Not even to ask, how did this happen? What do you think we can do to help? Why have I and others here probably not heard anything from the leadership at the USOC? Why has the United States Olympic Committee been silent? Why isn't the USOC here right now? Larry was the Olympic doctor, and he molested me at the 2012 London Olympic Games. They say now they applaud those who have spoken out, but it's easy to say that now. When the brave women who started speaking out back then, more than a year after the USOC says they knew about Nassar, they were dismissed. At the 2016 Olympic Games, the president of the USOC said that the USOC would not conduct an investigation and even defended USA Gymnastics as one of the leaders in developing policies to protect athletes. That's the response a courageous woman gets when she speaks out. And when others joined those athletes and began speaking out with more stories of abuse, were they acknowledged? No. It is like being abused all over again. I have represented the United States of America in 2 Olympics and have done so successfully. And both USA Gymnastics and the United States Olympic Committee have been very quick to capitalize and celebrate my success. But did they reach out when I came forward? No. So at this point, talk is worthless to me. We're dealing with real lives in the future of our sport. We need to believe this won't happen again. For this sport to go on, we need to demand real change, and we need to be willing to fight for it. It's clear now that if we leave it up to these organizations, history is likely to repeat itself. To know what changes are needed requires us to understand what exactly happened and why it has happened. This is a painful process, but it's the only way to identify all the factors that contributed to this problem and how they can be avoided in the future. This is the only way to learn from these mistakes and make gymnastics a safer sport. If ever there was a need to fully understand a problem, it is this one right now. To accept that problem is limited to just what we know now is irresponsible, delusional even. Each new day seems to bring a new survivor. We have no idea just how much damage you caused, Larry, and we have no idea how deep these problems go. Now is the time to acknowledge that the very person who sits here before us now, who perpetrated the worst epidemic of sexual abuse in the history of sports, who is going to be locked up for a long, long time. This monster was also the architect of policies and procedures that are supposed to protect athletes from sexual abuse for both USA Gymnastics and the USOC. If we are to believe in change, we must first understand the problem and everything that contributed to it. Now is not the time for false reassurances. We need an independent investigation of exactly what happened, what went wrong, and how it can be avoided for the future. Only then can we know what changes are needed. Only then can we believe such changes are real. Your Honor, I ask you to give Larry the strongest possible sentence which his actions deserve. For by doing so, you will send a message to him and to other abusers that they cannot get away with their horrible crimes. They will be exposed for the evil they are, and they will be punished to the maximum extent of the law. Let this sentence strike fear in anyone who thinks it is okay to hurt another person. Abusers, your time is up. The survivors are here, standing tall, and we are not going anywhere. And please, Your Honor, stress the need to investigate how this happened so that we can hold accountable those who empowered and enabled Larry Nassar, so we can repair and once again believe in this wonderful sport. My dream is that one day, everyone will know what the words Me Too signify, but they will be educated and able to protect themselves from predators like Larry, so that they will never, ever, ever have to say the words Me Too. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm an adult. That was well deserved.
Thank you.
I'm an adult. I'm listening. I'm sorry it took this long. But I assure you that all of the words that you and your sister survivors have said and will say are being considered for sentencing. I have to say, there's a new state-of-the-art. It's called Allie Rasmussen and
Thank you.
and Rachel and every woman and parent and the doctors I've heard from. That state-of-the-art is change. It cannot remain. I agree with you in regard to the ranch. I read that. I didn't know there were still people there. I have no words for that. I think, though, they've heard you. And you were never the problem, but you are so much the solution. You are unstoppable. You are part of an unstoppable growing force, an unstoppable, strong, loud voice. The effects of your voice are far-reaching. It's not just in this courtroom, but worldwide. And I know that even if the cameras weren't here, you are going to continue talking. I can't tell, you're one of the strongest survivors who've been in front of me. I can't tell where you are in your healing. I don't want you to disclose that to me. But your words, I think, from my perspective, sitting here and listening to countless people talking about this, and there are more, you are so strong. You are that example to all of those other survivors that they can be you. Not just as an Olympian, as a woman, as a strong survivor, as a voice. So the new state of the art, Allie, that's you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Next.
Judge, I might normally apologize for the next speaker to have to follow Allie, but I am confident she is just as fierce. And she has decided to be identified publicly, and she will be accompanied by her father. So let me introduce you to Cassie Powell and her father, Doug Powell, who is a law enforcement officer as well. Come on up, please. And Cassie's photograph is displayed on the screen.
Thank you. And as a law enforcement officer, thank you for your service, but also for being here. I know how tough it is that this happened to your own.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Would you please state and spell your name?
Cassie Powell, Kassie Powell.
Thank you. What would you like me to know?
For the last year, I have lived behind the shadows of the name Jane Doe. I was afraid to be identified as myself and didn't want to accept this as my story, so Jane Doe was a nice name to push my pain and confusion off on. But I can't push it off anymore. This happened to me, and I have a name. My name is Cassie Powell. I was a pole vaulter and javelin thrower on the track and field team at Michigan State University. I have spent so many agonizing hours and days breaking down, trying to come up with the words to adequately express the point I want to get across here today. In order to do so, I need to start at the beginning. Your Honor. Okay, sorry. Your Honor, if it's okay with you, I'll be addressing the defendant directly for a lot of this statement.
You may.
I still remember the first time I ever saw you, Larry. March 26th, 2010. My Uncle Mike had referred me to you as he knew that he knew you from working with you at Twistars. I was 16 years old with dreams and aspirations that were larger than my hands could possibly grasp. I had so much potential, both in physical and mental capacities. You knew what pole vault meant to me, and you knew how desperately I needed help and relief from pain. You rush-ordered me to get an MRI that day, telling me that you thought I had cancerous tumors, or perhaps osteoid osteoma might ring a bell. You said I had cancerous tumors. You thought I had cancerous tumors pressing against my spine, possibly fracturing vertebrae. Don't look confused. Fear and sadness rushed over my entire being. I had a family wedding that night, and you called during the wedding, telling my parents and I that it came back negative for tumors, but my L2, L3 vertebrae were fractured. I felt so helpless, but so special and cared for all at the same time. You really know how to make young girls think they need you, don't you? I came back the next week, and you fitted me for a back brace, giving me advice as I was preparing to compete in Texas at the Youth Olympic Trials. You gave me an Olympic track and field sweatshirt, and I swear I wore that thing around my house for weeks on end because I truly believed I was exactly where I needed to be to make my dream of becoming an Olympian come true. Oh, how you had me fooled. That was the day you massaged my glutes with your hands down my pants. You mentioned that medical procedures would work better if I shaved around my private areas. I remember the first time you used your bare fingers to penetrate me. My mom stood at my head while your hands made their way under a towel and under my spandex and shorts. In fear and unfamiliarity, I remember looking around frantically, and as I looked left to your figure standing over me, I saw a bulge in your pants. I walked out of the office that day feeling incredibly dirty and nauseous. Now let me explain that really quickly. I have been in counseling for the last year, and it was asked to me in counseling, did penis ever cross your mind? And when I was asked that question, it became evidently clear to me that that is exactly what I saw that day. So I will go on. I walked out of the office that day feeling incredibly dirty and nauseous, a feeling that I have most recently come to know as trauma and distrust. My mom looked at me while we got in the car to leave, and before we pulled away, she said, "Cass, are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." I replied, "I think I'm okay, but I don't ever want him to do that again." The 35-minute car ride home felt like 35 hours, as I didn't speak and sat in silence trying to wrap my mind around why I felt so nauseated. The next appointment, my mom, not knowing that you had your fingers inside her 16-year-old daughter the week before, kindly told you what you did last time was really uncomfortable, and she'd prefer if you didn't do it again. She spoke for me, as you had already stolen the voice, confidence, and innocence of that girl. As you can see, I still struggle referring to that young girl as I or me, as I struggle accepting that for 6 years, I thought you genuinely wanted to help me, and you were merely using me for your own selfish desires to get off on. Unfortunately, to no one's surprise, it didn't stop there, because I trusted that it surely wouldn't happen again if we told you not to do it again. Wrong. You started a routine, as we've heard many talk about, each time I came in, asking about my uncle and how he was. You would have me stand in front of you and bend over so that I would bend over so that you could check my alignment of my hips. You'd tap on the table, telling me to lay on my back. You'd start by cracking my neck, my upper back, my lower back, by standing on each side of me to rotate my upper body. All normal, right? What wasn't normal is that you would constantly have your hands on me, making your way from the left side of my body, running your hand down my left hip and leg, only to make your way up my right side. You'd have me flip to my stomach, feeling the ribs on my upper back. One of my first visits, you had me sit up after feeling your way up my upper back. Standing behind me, you lifted my shirt from the back, and your left hand made its way under my armpit, under my sports bra, and around my left breast, cupping it in your hand and massaging it. Yet again, fear and panic ran through my mind, as I had no idea what was happening. You had your right hand gently on my right shoulder, with no pressure anywhere, just holding and massaging my left breast. To this day, I still don't know why. I remember you asking me if it felt better, and I quickly just said yes, as I wanted it to stop and didn't know why you were doing it in the first place. I'm still comprehending and accepting that that's just what you did over and over, isn't it? Took advantage of young girls because we all just trusted what you were doing. Back to your routine, though. After making your way up my upper back, you would grab a towel, tuck it into my waistband, grab the cocoa butter, spread it on my lower back and hamstrings, and while your left forearm slid its way up and down my lower back and hamstrings, your right hand would make its way under the towel and under my spandex, while your dry, gloveless fingers forced their way into me, pressing in and pulling so hard against the outer wall that I could have screamed. But like athletes do, I just gritted my teeth as to not look weak. But you always made sure to make me feel weak anyway, by telling me that I have a weak cheerleader butt every single time I saw you. But I can't even say that, because I didn't always come to your office to see you, did I? No. You texted me before my Big Ten championships my junior year to see if I needed anything before leaving for West Lafayette, and asked me to come over to your house. Yet again, I thought you cared, but you just wanted to be in your own backyard to put your fingers inside of me. Did it make you feel powerful to get away with never having accountability or oversight? Even when there was someone shadowing you or any assistant in the room, you made sure to advise them to leave the room, saying, "I'm all set, you can go." Or, "You can step out for this part," like it was no big deal. Even more interesting, when my athletic trainers came with me to your appointments, you would not touch me in the same ways. Do you understand how sickening and painful it is to look back at all of this? No, you don't. You made that evidently clear when you wrote what you were saying, that what we are saying is not strong enough for criminal charges. I was recently asked if you could go back and change anything, what would you change? The answer is nothing. What is a young girl supposed to do in times of fear? Tell their mom and plead for it to stop. I did those things. Sorry, excuse me. I now struggle believing my voice means anything or holds any weight to anyone. I feel unheard and at most times helpless. When Rachel came forward last September, thank you, by the way, I initially did not want to believe it, again, because I didn't want to accept that this is part of my story. Unfortunately, my memory works all too well for this madness, and as I started going to counseling, it all started to add up. 1 + 1 + 1 + 45 = 48. 48 times over 6 years, I believed you were helping me, and now I know you are using your authority and status to harm me and countless other young girls. Because of you, I struggle to trust anyone, even God. I contemplate how God could allow something like this to happen to me and so many others, but it wasn't God that caused this. It was you, Larry Nassar. Because of you, being helped and used go hand in hand. I have pushed away everyone I've ever loved or has ever loved me, oftentimes lashing out at them because I question everyone's intentions. Happy, extroverted, carefree, adventurous Cassie has been lost, as you stole and left me with a void and feeling of emptiness and loss deeper than words can express. I have explained today, January 19th, 2018, to friends and family as my own funeral, and this is my own obituary, because I now mourn the loss of so many parts of who I was. You stole my innocence, my voice, my trust, my joy, and years of my life that I won't get back. So many times I have contemplated ending my own life, thinking that torturing myself would be better than accepting this truth, because at least then I would have control over the pain. I have hurt my dearest friends and family who have undergone undue misdirected anger and undue stress from this whole process. You have destroyed my psyche, and now the pain and dysfunction doesn't just affect me and every other girl involved in this case, but it's transferred to all of those around us. I am haunted by reoccurring nightmares of the abuse, and I wake up screaming, crying, and in cold sweats many nights. There's no sanctuary from this mental torment. I want so badly to love and accept and to be loved and accepted, but at the same time, I'm so scared and terrified that everyone is just going to harm me like you have. I trusted you for years. How am I ever supposed to trust anyone is who they say they are? I struggle to breathe in panic and anxiety when I think about that. You put immense fear, pain, and hate into my heart. What is ironic about that is yesterday, we became aware that you were really concerned about your ability to handle listening to impact statements. 4 days? Really? You can't handle 4 days? You really think that we can handle the torment and humiliation that you've caused our mentality and status for the rest of our lives? Scripture says a thief comes only to kill, steal, and destroy. You are a thief, Larry Nassar. I now live in fear, darkness, sadness, and pain, The craziest part is that I am ashamed that I was assaulted and have carried that shame with me. I am ashamed that I was looking at your pants that day and know you had an erection. I am ashamed to speak of my pain because I don't want to be going through this living hell, so why would I share that weight with anyone else? Do you understand what shame does to a person? It isolates them. No human wants to look their father or mother, brother or sister, friends or family in the eyes and tell them how they were used. I shut everyone out and sat alone in a lot of this darkness. I graduated from Michigan State in 2015 and moved to Nashville, Tennessee, where I was managing a medical facility. Every day I watched patients walk in, desperate for help, and sat in my own mental agony, facing flashbacks and triggers that were unbearable. Unable to handle the medical setting and unsure of what to do with my professional life in order to make a living, I was encouraged to pursue what I love, coaching. I was given an opportunity to come back to Michigan State as a graduate assistant for the track and field team. I had a choice: stay in Nashville and struggle to focus on anything else outside of this consuming distress, or come back to East Lansing and face all of this head on, walking the same sidewalks and hallways I did when you were abusing me. Neither of those are real great, are they? I chose to run back into a burning building with fire and debris all around me, and here I am, still standing, still pressing on, in spite of you, and in pursuit of my own dream to coach. With the help of counselors, medical professionals unlike yourself, family, friends, and God's faithful and unfailing love, I have hope that I will find healing and peace, strength, and dignity. I now want to take a moment to thank many people. February 1st of 2017 was the day I decided to come forward after 5 months of understanding the war that was waged against me. I want to thank my dad, a retired law enforcement officer, for helping me make that call and for being my human dictionary and hero when I didn't understand what was happening legally, mentally, emotionally. The list goes on. I want to thank Detective Andrea Mumford for graciously receiving the call and gently walking with me through the process from start to finish. Thank you to my counselors for helping me understand the utter confusion that comes from being both helped and harmed at the very same time, and for helping me believe that tears don't always mean you're weak, that sometimes tears are evidence of strength. Thank you to my incredible parents, brother, and sister who have listened to me talk in circles, never judged me, and have helped me stand. Thank you to my roommates, Matt and Jill, for giving me a safe place to live when I didn't know what the word safe meant anymore. To my best friend, Erica, who has been so present, encouraging, forgiving, patient, and loving, thank you. Thank you to everyone involved in the trial and for their endless time and attention. Judge Aquilina, I want to personally thank you for taking the time to hear us all out and for validating the strength it takes to stand up against this evil. Thank you for restoring us with a little bit of dignity by calling us heroes against an epidemic after Larry pled guilty, and for continuing to do so day after day this week. And finally, to every girl involved here, thank you for your bravery, for your vulnerability, and for your strength when you felt anything but strong. I have struggled thinking about this day and all the emotions it would bring. I was so afraid of standing up here, looking this man in the eyes, because I knew that staring evil in the eyes would take strength that I do not have in and of myself. I knew I was walking into a situation that would bring closure, yes, but also I knew that what I was walking into today would cause more nightmares and flashbacks for days and nights to come. I've reminded myself that my God and my Savior also walked into a situation where he was abused, mocked, and terrified, but he did it in order that we may have life. I remind myself that Esther was put in a situation for such a time as this so that her people would find relief and deliverance, the same thing every one of us is seeking here this week. I remember the story of Joseph in Genesis 50:20. You meant evil against me, Larry, but God meant it for good. I remind myself of Hebrews 10:30. Vengeance is mine, says the Lord, I will repay. That one helps me sleep at night. I remind myself that sometimes we are given far more than we can handle, so that we will fall on our faces in desperation for God to give us the strength for another day. I remind myself that after crucifixion and self and humiliation on Friday, Jesus rose on Sunday, and so will we. I remind myself that the prophet Job lost everything and though he never got the answer to why, he still believed that God is good, and in the midst of great loss and immense pain, he believed he was good. We will never know the answer to why Larry Nassar used all of us. But I have to believe that suffering and pain will make us stronger. So we must not walk away from here with our heads hung low, but with pride in ourselves that we have stood firm against evil and stopped it. There will be so many hard days ahead of memories followed by triggers causing pain and sadness, fear and anger. But on those days, I pray we will all know we're not alone, that we have each other and there is strength in numbers. I pray that God would help us find forgiveness and peace in the midst of all of this. Forgiveness will look differently for all of us. For me, it will be a daily occurrence in battle. Ephesians 4:31-32 says, "Get rid of all bitterness, rage, and anger, brawling and slander, along with every form of malice. Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as in Christ God forgave you." I wish I could stand in front of you today and tell you that I forgive you, Larry, but it will be a daily fight to forgive you and to find healing and peace. The hardest part about ending this statement is I know as soon as I walk away from this room, I will think about a million other things I want to say. What am I supposed to do with that? I guess I'll find out as I go. With that, it will soon be time for Larry to reap what he has sown. There's no grooming that can be done in the face of this judge to blind her eyes to the evil, heinous harm that you did. It is time for justice to finally be served. You hid for years behind Olympic rings and a Spartan head, but there is now nowhere left for you to hide, Larry. Judge Aquilina, I plead with you that you would give this man the maximum sentence. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I want you to know, first of all, Superwoman has nothing on you. You are an amazing woman. You all are. This is the new generation of Superwomen that we're hearing from. You matter. Your voice means everything here. I know you felt that you haven't had a voice, but you've been heard. You stole your voice back, and he will never have it or hear it again unless these words are played to him. I absolutely adore your career choice. Being a coach with your wisdom, intelligence, and eyes wide open on behalf of everybody you coach is vital to the change that all of you are seeking. And I applaud that. Please keep your voice going. I've said it before, I'm going to keep saying it because it's an epidemic. Suicide shuts you up, doesn't let anything good happen except the
It
loud
takes a very,
cries.
very sick type of person to commit crimes such as murder or assault. So I would never do that.
I am so glad to hear that because I've heard it from most of you that it's crossed your mind, and I just want to reinforce that we want you here, we want your voice, we want that super voice, that super coach that you're going to be. And I'm so pleased that you came here. Keep up the good fight. I'm going to be watching, and I don't know how you feel right now, but I really feel like you are 10 feet taller than when you came in. Thank
Probably
you.
true. My father also has a couple words. I don't know if he's prepared or if you would be willing to hear them.
course I
If
am.
not, okay.
All
Thank you.
right. Sir, I need you to state and spell your name for the record.
My name is Doug Powell, Doug Powell.
What would you like me to know?
Judge Aquilina, I find myself on familiar, yet disturbing unfamiliar territory today. as we appear here in your court. I will do my very best to remain ethical, politically correct, as I address this court, the defendant, his counsel, in this extremely emotionally charged issue. May I address the defendant?
Your name, sir.
Inmate Nassar. Inmate Nassar. That is what your name is. And don't you forget that. The media outlets that have so intently covered this hearing need to know your name. Your name is not Dr. Nassar. It is not Mr. Nassar. It is not Larry. It's inmate. Inmate 21504-040 for your eternal life. As a law enforcement correctional professional for over 32 years, I speak for myself and my personal feelings that you do not deserve to be educated regarding your future. You do not deserve to be educated on the how-tos. How to fly a kite to a correctional officer to ask for a doctor. How to fly a kite to ask how to fill out an inmate form. How to fly a kite to ask how you use the inmate telephone system. You do not deserve the wins. When will those blue clothes you have on your back be washed? When will those whites that are limited in your possession be laundered? When will your blankets be laundered? You do not deserve that. The wares within those facilities and the watch out fors. You do not deserve to be educated in that. As you are forever escorted from wall to wall. Because as we have all seen and you have proven, you did not care to extend that courtesy or compassion to anyone. Yet you simply benefited from your pathetic, narcissistic, psychopathic agenda. However, I will educate you on some prison argots, language terms that you might want to understand. As documented in a correctional textbook that I've used for lectures, written by PhD Frank Schmallinger and PhD Schmellinger, you want me to spell it?
Please.
SCHMALLEGER, and PhD John Smykla, SMYKLA. You will want to become familiar with these terms. Fish. Chester. Diaper sniper. Diddler. Tree jumper. Just to list a few. I hope these argots are offensive to you because you are offensive to us. However, in my world and in my family's world that you have so conveniently destroyed, you are a fucking hog. A hog. Inmate Nassar, I pray, and I'm sure this goes against several's opinion in this room, but I pray that these county, state, and federal correctional staff that you will forever come in contact with perform their jobs to the best of their abilities to keep you alive. And don't you dare try to manipulate the correctional facility and be a coward and harm yourself. Alive so you can live in fear as you had inflicted fear, guilt, and pain on these young women and families. Fear the demons from the dark as we have done. Fear that you wake soaked in the night with sweat from the nightmares, as I and my family have done. Fear for the safety, sanity of your children, wife, and family, as I and my family have done. I want you to fear the pain of the futuristic death notifications that are certain to come your way as you remain locked within the walls, unable to hold and console your family. I want you to fear those dark corners, unimaginable correctional corridors. I want you to fear that booty bandit that wants to make you his punk. I want you to fear and cry and no one to listen. I want you to remain alive for your eternal life inside those walls. I read a quote a few weeks back, searching the internet for inspiring quotes and sayings, just trying to help my girls place some sort of existence in daily life during all this darkness and nights. And this quote resonates in my mind, as I am a woodworker for therapeutic reasons. And I paraphrase, "You, inmate Nassar, are like a piece of sandpaper in a woodworker's shop. You scratch, you dig, and you will change the exterior, and in this case, the enthusiasm, the internal minds, the trust and the dignity of so many. But in the end, those scratched and dug will become polished and beautiful. And beautiful, strong women they are, and they have rocked your world. And you, inmate Nassar, will be discarded and thrown into the garbage like the garbage you are." Judge Aquilina, as we approach the close to these 4 daunting days of emotionally charged statements, I applaud you. We applaud you. This room applauds you. Your candor, your demeanor, your willingness and understanding to listen to so many horrific stories. I encourage you to impose the maximum sentence upon inmate Nassar recommended by Attorney Povolitis and her team. We eagerly wait for the closure of this hearing to hear your voice. Thank you.
Sir, thank you so much. You have the depth and knowledge that other parents don't, and I know that your words were more than heartfelt. I know that what you've gone through, and every parent has gone through, is very sickening, but because you know the legal system so much, I know there's a special hurting place in you, and I hear that in your words. And I'm hoping that today, coming here, will also help you heal. And you are also a survivor with that voice, and your voice has also helped to shape now, in the future, others, and to rock defendants' world. I have heard you. No thanks needed with me. I know this seems unusual, and it is unusual because of so many victims, but I do this every day with all victims. I'm not specially selecting this. I know you all keep honoring me that way, and I'm humbled, but it's really not necessary. You did your job out on the streets. That's more than what I've ever done. Thank you, sir. Thank you to your beautiful daughter. You're quite a team.
Thank you.
approach. All right, at this time, we are going to break for lunch until 1:30. 1:30. Thank you. We're off the record.